I'm the Director of Performance Management at the Georgia Charter Schools Association. I hope to explain to you what that means today. We're going to do three things today. We're going to talk about some important big ideas surrounding data. We're going to look at some examples that we've worked on pretty hard over the last couple of years to try to make this less of a mystery, a little more about history, a little more about use, strategic implementation of data initiatives, and then we're going to actually do a couple of things. I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks that I think will be very powerful. One, to kind of show you what is possible, and then two, it'll actually allow you to do some of these things that are possible. You see the map on the board there. It's a map that tries to track the way my mind moves, and it also helps me kind of keep myself on course. The green part is where we're going to start off. If you remember our last session, I talked about strategic planning from a SWOT standpoint. I don't do SWOT analysis, I do SWOT analysis. I talk about strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities so that I can start strong and end strong. Because I see strength as understood weakness, and I see opportunity as a corrected threat, a strategic response to a threat. Now you'll notice the map only shows you strength and opportunity because I figured I'd have to be a little more efficient with time, so the strengths that I'll talk to you about will come from understood weaknesses, and I'll talk to you about some of that. The opportunities are threats that we've recognized and we now know how we want to deal with them. So if you'll indulge me for about 18 minutes, I want to talk to you for a little while. And in talking to you, I hope I'm going to give you some big ideas that kind of shape the world and then make the world a little smaller. I brought this as one of my visual aids today. We're going to take the big old world and we're going to make it small enough where we can examine it and count all the dimples in this golf ball if that's what we wanted to do. I don't know why you would want to do that, but we want to make the conversation small enough where we could if we needed to, because that's how data kind of operates, and that's how I like to operate with data. You want to be able to look at it from as far away as you need to or as closely as you need to, depending on what the need is. How's that for a game plan? All right. Let me talk to you about the last couple of years that I've spent as Director of Performance Management at GCSA. Came from the charter school world. I was Lisa Falco's assistant principal at Tech High School, and I was the chief firefighter. Whatever problems occurred, I developed the strategies, I helped implement the strategies. I was the tugboat. There's some days I had to pilot the mothership, but whatever she needed me to do, that's what I did. And I came away from that with a wealth of experience, both about how to do it, maybe how you don't want to do it, and how to recognize when you're doing it the way you don't want to do it so that you can kind of get turned around and do it the way that you need to do it. That gave me a very nice perspective and a wherewithal about what GCSA was attempting to do in building this performance management data system, this thing that would bring together years of longitudinal data, tracking attendance, enrollment, performance, and using that thing to drive performance at each of the charter schools. As with many ideas, it was a great idea. It still is a great idea. Here's where I say I've never heard a bad idea. I think all ideas are great. Where ideas fly or fail is in the plan that you structure to implement the idea, to make the idea happen. When you realize there's some things that are happening that you don't want to happen, you have to determine how you want to correct course. Sometimes the correct course is to cut bait, if you understand what I'm saying. And sometimes you say, let's not go that way anymore, let's go this way. So the key elements in the evolution of our performance management approach started with a pilot of this database, this big thing. I have a visual aid here that shows you the big thing. This bottle of water represents our data system. It's big. It's clearly evident from all points of the room. I call it the mothership. We brought all the data to it. We put the data in it. We had 15 years of attendance data. We've got 15 years of enrollment data. We've got about 8 years of assessment data. We got it all in there. And then I decided to ask myself a question that kind of changed my life. I asked myself, why would I ever want to know what school attendance looked like in 1995? And I couldn't answer that question. Now, I'm an engineer, which means once upon a time, I used to build things for a living. I used to build things that if they weren't built properly, might result in the loss of life. So you've got to always know why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you can't say why you're doing it, it may be something that you didn't need to do. So I said, yeah, we may not need 15 years of attendance data. Time will tell. If we have it, let's not turn it away. But time will tell whether we actually need it or not. Enrollment data. It's nice that I can tell you what enrollment in all schools looked like in 1995, particularly charter schools. Wouldn't take me long to tell you because there weren't many charter schools in 1995. But that may not be something going forward that anybody ever actually wants to know. So the mothership has everything and it can go anywhere, but it may take a while for it to get there. And then once you get there, you may not know whether that's really where you want to go, and you may want to go somewhere else. So I started thinking that if we're trying to meet the performance management needs of our schools, we may need something else. I don't know what that something else is, so I started thinking about it, and I said, okay, well, the easy way to do it is let's actually look at what happens in our organization over the next several months. Now, this is probably around October 2011. The constitutional amendment campaign is not yet in full swing, but we know it's coming. So we know that along with that, there'll be lots of requests from lots of people who want to know about all things charter. Let's see what they ask us for, and then let's see what position we're in to respond, whether we can respond from the mothership. The number one request over the next 6 months was, what is the enrollment level at all of these schools, all of the charter schools that the state has approved? There came this magnetic focus on all of these state-approved charter schools. We want to know how many students they have. I back up and I say, why is that what they want to know? And this is down at the Gold Dome. Everybody in the Gold Dome wants to know how many students are at each of these schools. Now, who would hazard a guess as to why anyone would have this obsession with the number of students at all of these various schools? What does enrollment determine more than anything else at a school? It determines funding. Okay, the Gold Dome's trying to follow money. They're trying to follow money. There was one particular politician, I would not say his name because I'm being recorded, that called me and asked me for the same report on 3 different occasions. I have some rules that I live by. One of them says 1 time's an accident, 2 times is a trend, 3 times, that's a problem. You've asked me for the same report 3 separate times, which tells me that the first time, all you wanted from me was data. The second time, all you wanted from me was data that I had already given you. The third time, you wanted data that I've already given you twice. I get it. I get it, I get it, I get it. What is data? What is data? It's not information, but that's what most people think. Data is just facts and figures. Alphanumeric facts and figures. I'm an old math teacher. I actually taught engineering in high school. If you're going to teach high school students engineering, you got to know how to say things very simply and concisely in as few words as possible. So we had a rule in our class. We defined everything using 5 words or less. Because if we can define it in 5 words or less, 1, we really understand it. And then 2, we're able to share it with anybody else. So data is alphanumeric facts and figures. And I don't count and in my word limit. But that's what data is. Here's an example of data. The phone numbers of every person in this room, just the 10 digits that represent your phone number, that's little more than alphanumeric facts and figures. That's all that is. Now, information is understood data. It's understood data. Understood data. Now, here's an example of information. Those same 10-digit phone numbers in a list, preceded by each of your names, matched appropriately to your phone number, preceded by a picture of each of you. That's information. Now, if I've got that in my hands, I've got the key now to knowledge. Because what is knowledge? Knowledge is actualized information. Information that you actually do something with. Perhaps the greatest frustration in my work, which I only see as an opportunity for greater solution, is 6 out of every 10 reports that I produce, I'm going to produce it again because it's only requested from someone who only wants data. And usually they want data because someone has told them to go get data. So I'm helping them fulfill a very important requirement of their job. It's to keep the treadmill moving. Go get me this data so that I can give this data to whoever asked me for the data, and please don't tell them where you got it from, because then I'll look like I don't know. And they think I don't know. I get it. I get it. I get it. So hopefully now we've set the parameters of data, information, and knowledge. What's a database? It's a collection of alphanumeric facts and figures. And it's something that we all drive ourselves crazy about trying to access. But here's where I tell you, you don't want a database. What you want is a knowledge base. That's what you want. Excuse me for being so forward telling you what you want. You don't want a database, you want a knowledge base. Now, if you got a database that can give you knowledge, then you got what you ultimately need. Knowledge base helps drive decision making, right kind of decision making. A database may just tell you how many students went to your school in 1995. Doesn't tell you what they did, doesn't tell you what they're doing. It may not tell you what you need to get done what you're trying to get done. So in that moment, where my rule of 1 being an accident, 2 being a trend, 3 being a problem, I realized that I've got to be able to shift my work in the direction that it needs to go for all of us to ultimately get where we're trying to go. Data, alphanumeric facts and figures. Information, understood data. Knowledge, actualized information. So what is performance management? Here's where I tell you what my job is, because now I understand. Performance management is nothing more than converting data into information, into knowledge that drives improvement. That's what performance management is. Converting data to information, to knowledge in a way that drives improvement. How am I doing on time? Am I at 6 minutes yet, Lauren?
It says 13 minutes.
13 minutes. I got 5 minutes to wrap this thing up. So now, my challenge is to maintain the mothership, because the mothership is branded, we've paid lots of money for it, and it does have data that might yield useful information at some point in some way. But what I'm finding is all of the requests that are coming in require a nimble, specific, concise response that the mothership may not serve. Now, if you notice, behind the mothership, I've got this little pin. This is my tugboat. At times, this is my life raft. I use it as a tugboat when the mothership has steered off course and is about to contact a glacial region. I use the tugboat to pull it back online. There are other times where I use it as a life raft when the mothership is taking on water in a precarious manner, and we all need to get off and have a way to get back to shore. Now, I have found that this tugboat, this Swiss Army knife, is what I use to get 51% of my work done nowadays. The other 49% gets done through the mothership. Now, if I put them together, use them effectively, I've got the manifestation of synergy. The two tools together accomplish what neither one of them can do alone. So you use them together, you use them strategically, you let one sit in the background where the only people that know about the tugboat are people who have been served by it or the people who developed it. I can see it because I'm standing back here behind it as the developer. Ms. Harvey, you may or may not be able to see it from your perspective, but now if you've engaged it and have seen it, you know it works. You know it works. So we took this out into the field. I said, I think if I go out into schools now, spend a little time working directly with school leaders and working with them in a way that does not produce that dangerous data glaze. Or if it does, knowing how to take a break and then come back to it so we can keep pushing forward, I think we'll be able to get something done. So I built a version of the tugboat specifically for a school, the Heritage Preparatory Academy, this year. And I think we got really good results out of it, because when I went and started working with them, they said, you know, we love what you have in that performance management system, but now we've bought our own data. We use the MAP test, the Measures of Academic Progress test from NWEA. That's what we use. And Mr. Brown, what we get from it is wonderful, but we can't make sense out of it. Oh, you can't? Well, let me see it. So they bring it out, and it starts here, and it ends here, because they get a report for every student on every test, on every goal for that test across the school. They've got 170 students, but they printed all that information and brought it to me. And I looked at it and I said, we can't do anything with that. But now, I can build you one of these. So they said, well, how are we going to do that? I said, well, if you can get me the raw data, I can build you one of these that spits the information out to you a page at a time, where you as the captain of your mothership can chart your course based on what is represented on 8.5 by 11 map, if you will, and not all of this. You might not be able to do anything with this, except give me something to stand on if I'm going to change a light bulb, which I'd be more than happy to do. Now, to make a short story shorter, that worked, and it worked well, and I'm going to show you how well after we transition here a little bit, because I'm at 18 minutes yet.
Almost.
All right, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. Have I convinced you to